So wonderful to be with you all today. Thank you so much for your presence. I always love to start our time together just by offering a little gratitude to IJS. Actually, a lot of gratitude. So thank you to IJS for providing us with this space and for providing us with so many ways to come together, even over distance. I personally am just back from an in-person experience with IJS, the gathering of the Chavraya. And so I want to express my deep gratitude for that offering and to encourage you, if you have the chance to, in addition to coming together in this online community, if you have the chance to gather at an IJS in-person experience, um, I think it will even further deepen your practice and connection. So look for those opportunities. They're uniquely special and needed. Coming together right now is so important. So just take a moment to arrive in this moment, noticing your seat. Feel the steadiness of the floor or the chair beneath you. Just notice the boundary between the self and whatever you're sitting on at this moment. And then allowing the breath to just arrive as it is. Nothing to fix, nothing to improve. But also noticing that boundary when we breathe between the inhalation and the exhalation. And noticing where the turn from inhalation to exhalation, from exhalation to inhalation happens. Noticing that boundary as well. Noticing the boundary between the breath as it's inside of the body, outside of the body. And then just take a moment to sense the body's edges, skin, posture, gravity. And just noticing that we are bounded beings. Our parsha this week, Mishpatim, is a parsha of laws, of boundaries, of limits, and of lines that tell us this and not that. And so today I want to share a simple but deeply profound teaching, at least it's very profound for me. It comes from our teacher, Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg. Once when I was in her presence, she said, and this may be something she says often, or maybe I just got this gem from her. She said, the only thing I need to know about God is that I'm not God. God is boundless. Humans are not. We have bodies, we have lifespans. And we create laws and rules by which we live. Sometimes when we think of this idea of boundary, we can think of it as being limiting in a negative way. Today, I want to embrace this idea of boundary because when we forget boundaries, when we think that we are infinite, we forget that we're not God. And we might try to carry what we can't carry, to fix what we can't fix, to hold pain that doesn't belong to us, and to act as if everything depends on us. When we were entering the sit today, some of us mentioned challenges that we're facing. And another example, those challenges are real. And this is an opportunity as we sit and recognize boundaries to say that those challenges do not define us. They're not the only thing about us, and they're not the center of our souls or who we are, even in their realness and the pain that they may cause us. So Mishpatim comes like a gentle hand on the shoulder. You can even place a hand on your own shoulder if you want. And that hand says, you're human. So live like a human. Let your life have shape. Allow it to have limits. So the Sfat Emet teaches that God desires holy people, not angels. So God places sparks of holiness in this world in measure through contraction, through tzimtzum. And holiness becomes livable when it's held in a vessel. A bounded life is how holiness can come near. So we practice not by becoming vast, but really recognizing our true size and our shape and our limits. The Tanya says that even souls and angels are in the realm of limitation. So a created being can't receive infinity without resolving back to its source. So this idea of I am not God isn't necessarily distance. It's just a condition that allows us to live in relationship. Boundary allows us to recognize what we aren't and to recognize other from us. And that is an opportunity to live in relationship. All of these texts will be shared with you later. So don't worry, they'll be present for you, but I'll just invite you to allow them to wash over you at this point. And the final touch point, text touch point, comes from Likutei Tefillot. And it suggests that when we miss the mark, one dimension of missing the mark is blurring a line, confusing what leads toward wholesome life and what leads away from that. And one remedy to that is clarifying the boundary through discernment. So our practice today is very simple, just noticing our own physical boundaries. And if it occurs to you, what's yours to carry, what's not mine to carry, what's not yours to carry, what's yours to do, what's not yours to do, what burden you can lay down, and just practicing that the only thing to know about God is that I'm not God. That's what we'll sit with today. So I'll invite you now to allow your eyes to come to either a gentle focus or to close all the way. Notice again without fixing the breath. And then today, just let the anchor of your sitting be this bounded body, this body with limitation. And in particular, just focusing on where your seat meets the cushion or the floor, or where your skin, the boundary of your body, meets the air. And if the mind wanders, just coming back to that noticing your bounded self today. Again, anytime the mind should wander, just coming back to that sense of boundary that we're given as a gift by these bodies that we live in. Just noticing where the boundary of the body and the outside world meets. Really just focusing the attention on that area. Also noticing that these moments of meditation also provide a boundary. It's bounded time. Time that we dedicate solely to this purpose of being with what is. And today, paying attention to our own physical boundary. When you're ready, just noticing that boundary one last time. Continuing to notice the boundary of the breath as it enters and exits the body. And when you're ready, gently opening the eyes. We'll close our practice today with a poem by E.G. Burroughs called Limits. The fragrance of white stars on a bush, the headiness of nectar in the word jasmine, in the scent of ginger, the probe of things night blooming, by the tongues of hummingbirds, bodies scarlet in the sun. That spring we walked to where the land roared against an entire Pacific of white lighthouses and haystacks, the shore hidden in foam, the path down from clear cut, and the sobbing of stumps smoldering at the crown of the hill. Through cedars and blackberry tangle. And we knew it was the edge of the country as the dog shrank back and a flight of spume dashed us randomly like splash from oars. Even with sail, we could go no farther. Even with gulls under us or long-necked cranes supporting our lighter-than-air presumptions. We knew we had reached the ultimate coast with its damp ferns and dangerous rocks, stroked incessantly by waters of definition. Now turn back. There's nothing to learn beyond this. More knowledge can only bring disappointment, like a universe rounding on itself. The snake of God's mirth with its tail in its mouth. Mind what is torn. Smell the flower bush that illuminates the path you have traveled. It's enough, more than one life can handle. Thank you so much for your presence, for taking the time to notice the boundaries of your own self. And by sitting with this beautiful idea that allows us to recognize our own boundaries, the only thing I need to know about God is that I'm not God. And I want to thank Rabbi Sheila Peltz Weinberg for that idea one more time. Thank you again for your presence.
Thank you so much, Cantor Kerith, guiding us so beautifully today, beginning our week with such a beautiful practice. Let's seal that practice by honoring those who are holding grief today, those in mourning, observing yard sites, those for whom it's the custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish. We create space here each day to hold that grief and to do so with boundaries and with love. And so we encourage those of you who are not reciting Kaddish to set a boundary and stay with us for a few moments to support those who are. You can put the names of those you're honoring today in the chat. And I want to especially send love to my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Sam Feinsmith, who's got up from Shiva for his dear mother, Roberta Feinsmith, yesterday. And glad you're here, Sam. And hope you feel held and loved by this community, and the same for all those who are reciting Kaddish today. I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute to recite the Kaddish at this time.
Yitkada,
Hashemiraban,
Amen.
Adirachirutavim,
Yekom
Bechachutavim,
Yekom Hayekho Beit Yisrael
Beit Israel,
Hagala
Gala
Zman Karev
Vizman
Hebrew
Amen. Rabba Mevarach Le'olam Ulalmei Almaya.
Barak,
Asha,
Shavirabavi, Talavi, Tal, Shminikashav, Mikol Bechab,
Elam
Tav Nechama,
Rachata
Viram
B'Shem
Bialma Vimur,
Shmita V'Nechama
Rabban
B'Ahavah
Shemaya,
B'Ram B'Olam
Yisrael. Amen.
Shlama Rabba
Amen.
Kamataya Imalenu V'El
Kol Yisrael, Chodesh B'Tevet.
Amen.
Shalom B'Roma Shalom Aleinu Israel Yaakov Yosef Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. May those who are in mourning be comforted, and may those who are remembering today be a blessing always in your lives. Friends, as always, you're invited to stay on with us and use the boundary of this container to help support you to continue to practice. You can turn the sound off on your computer device, continue sitting with us for 15 more minutes or longer, up to you. You can join us for conversation about the beautiful teaching today and reflect on the practice. You can do that in the chat. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you can put in the chat and just write question or Q all in caps. Putting in the chat our lineup of teachers for the rest of this week. Tomorrow will be led, the next 2 days will be led by teachers joining us from Israel, Rabbi Daniel Raphael Silverstein, and on Wednesday, Rabbi Mira Neshama Nicolescu. Jenny Apter will lead us on Thursday, and Aviva Chernik will help us sit into Shabbat on Friday. So it's an international week, Canada and Israel, and looking forward to that. I will keep an eye on the chat for your questions, try to work them into the conversation. Thanks so much, Kerith. And eventually I want to go get around to just talking with you about the upcoming retreat and the work you're doing in LA. But let's begin by talking a little bit about this practice today and your teaching. And often this practice, at least as is described, especially by our colleague, Rabbi Jordan Ben-Dad Appel, as one that involves chesed ve'emet, love and truth. It's just an opportunity to take a moment to practice kindness, love, and to explore the truth of our experience in the moment. And it's really, I think, I want to just underline, what you brought in today about the Hebrew term would be gevura, which usually means like might or strength, which really represents the boundaries, which are also just like mindfulness practice is a boundary setting practice of using our energy to kind of bring our attention back to the intention to notice boundaries and without the boundaries. So the other thing that came up for me though was, with all the anxiety I and many others are feeling these days, I realize that so much of it stems from a sense of the dissipation of boundaries that we have taken for granted, whatever they might be, constitutional rights, assumptions that, that we're provided a sense of assurance and safety that are evaporating. And people, of course, are using their Gevura to reestablish. And so I'm sharing that as a way of
Amen.
reflection.
Amen.
Yeah. So it's just partly it's noticing, that's one of the reasons for the collective anxiety, and also one of the reasons fueling the energy of people who are reasserting those essential boundaries. So I want to throw that into the mix. But I wanted more to the point, I want to go to, this teaching that you quoted from our dear teacher, Rabbi Sheila Pilch-Weinberg, about that we're not God. And the bound, that also a very necessary awareness But I wanted to invite you to talk a little bit about the connection between not being God, but being made in the image of God, being godly. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking the boundary between God and us is a kind of permeable boundary in a way,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yep.
so how's that, how do you understand that? The sense that
Yeah.
the practice could be, both are important to remember, it seems like.
Yeah. So there's a few things that you touched on that I want to respond to. The first is the our that many people are feeling called to reestablish gavura and boundary in our lives in response to what we see in the world around us. Um, and I think it's really important to recognize within ourselves. I'll I'll speak from my own personal experience. I'm a very empathetic person, so I tend to have in my nature, take on maybe
Mhm.
more of external emotion than is right balanced for myself, right? So
Mhm.
it's important for me to practice Gavura in that way. Other people, they may need to practice that porousness in their practice of receiving, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but boundary, as you said, it is permeable. I also want to just talk about a little bit about how the limitation setting and connection is playing out for me in my world, and perhaps it'll resonate with others. Is that um, the boundedness for me right now is playing out in ways that um, invite community, um, but intentional community. And not to exclude, but also being aware of who, what I'm inviting into my space at moments where I'm feeling tender,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So to help kind of reinforce that boundary so that then I have strength to go out and do the work. So that's how this is playing out for me in a very deep way, that being intentionally with community is feeling incredibly important to me right now. And you all are a part of that. So thank you. Um, and then the idea, Mark, that you mentioned about this boundary when we talk about ourselves and God being permeable. Absolutely. I think when the ego it exerts itself, it's a very important moment for us to take Sheila's teaching into our hearts really strongly of I'm the only thing I need to know about God is I'm not God.
Mhm.
Um, and then there are other times when we're feeling, um, the humility is a beautiful quality, right? But taken to an extreme, it can push us down so far that we can't see the holiness, the godness within ourselves. So if we're in that place,
Mhm.
um, making that connection more porous, and really embracing our godliness. The one thing for me that feels very strong in that boundaried relationship is that I can't practice cleaving to God or longing for God if I don't recognize the separation between me and divinity. So there has to be some separation there in order for that sense of longing that is a positive sense of longing that calls
Mhm.
me to be the best Kerith that I can be to be in place. So thank you for all of the questions, and I apologize
That's a
for
guy.
that
No, that
very
was
long answer.
it was great. Well, it was very long. It's a very long, meandering question, and you touched. I think we eventually walked the same path. And what you said, Kerith, also is make me think. go back to last week's Parsha, Yitro, and the boundaries that are set around Mount Sinai, right?
Mhm.
That God tells Moses that these boundaries that the people should come close, but to
Yeah.
respect that space, and even the physical representation of the mountain
Sure.
as this delineation, the boundary. But the boundary is kind of porous because it's a physical boundary, but the sound passes through. The people can hear, right, what's happening,
Yeah.
and they respond. And then they eventually say, okay, we want an even stronger boundary. We want to pull back.
Mhm.
And Moses goes up. Moses kind of moves through that boundary as their representative. Um, um, oh, there was a question. Let me just go back up. Okay, so Glenn is asking a question. If you scroll up a little bit, the question of boundaries has these two sides, perhaps inside and outside. We know physical boundaries are not fixed in living beings. We often
Mhm.
think in the mental and spiritual sense that boundaries are fixed. Can you say a bit more about this
Mhm.
belief in fixed aspect, which I'm taking to be a little bit of related to what you were saying about using awareness to adjust? You were talking about, having our hand on the dial in a way to kind of strengthen the boundary and loosen the boundary a little bit, like to have stronger boundaries when we're feeling too tender. Some people I see in the chat are talking about news intake and,
Mhm.
titrating that a little bit. Or
Yeah.
as you said, when feeling, I'm feeling a little bit tender here, I need to protect, it's for
Mhm.
protective purposes. Um, anyway, what would you say about that? About adjusting the boundaries in that way.
Yeah. So I think part of what's coming to me in the question is the inside outside. I think the breath is a really beautiful example
Mm-hmm.
of helping us access and of a bodily, a somatic experience of a porous boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we know we feel the air enter our bodies. We feel that it changes when it
Mm-hmm.
comes into us. It actually enters our system, but then we exhale. Excuse me, and the breath is transformed. Um, so, so I think that helps us kind of have a framework for spiritual boundary as well. That they're uh, it's not like we step from night into day.
Mm-hmm.
There's that period of intermingling, and so recognizing that place as well. Another way to sit that I found to be really a beautiful way to sit is to focus on actually the the micro space that exists between me and my sitting place. And so I think that's another manifestation representation of, and I'm so sorry, I can't see the chat. What's the name of the person who asked this question?
When? Yeah.
Okay. Um, what they're asking about, that little bit of space in between there, that there is that kind of space that's neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think in my experience, um, for my day-to-day actions, dwelling in that space can be a little bit confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And so boundary can be helpful for me in terms of just discernment.
Yeah, I think discernment is actually that's a word it's coming up for me a lot as I listen to you.
Hmm.
This moment to moment discernment. People are, there's a lot in the chat about this question about um, discerning the appropriate boundary. But I guess in the essence, we don't have enough time to look at the sources that you brought, which are really beautiful. Highly recommend people to look at it, and also the poem you ended with. on limits, that many of them have deal with how do we bring our awareness to the interface between the spiritual and the physical and the material. That, like you said, that our bodies are the ultimate reminder of our limitations and boundaries,
Yeah.
right? And yet we are also spiritual beings, right?
Yeah.
Animated by this divine energy, right? And that's a life, just strikes me that that's a life's work of spiritual practice there, of living in a body, which eventually will lie in the ground, and being
Mhm.
aware that we're part of something timeless also.
Yeah, and I think our closing our practice every day with Kaddish is a beautiful reminder of that as well. I mean, we're remembering and caring for our community in that way. And we're
Mm-hmm.
also reminding ourselves that we do live in a boundaried existence just by the nature of our lives uh, having an end.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Well, on that note, I wanted to on that happy note, I wanted to invite you to talk a little bit about the work you're doing, because it was very important, I think, to talk about. You started by talking about how important it is to have an in-person experience, right,
Yeah.
of this practice.
Yeah.
So I do want to devote the last couple of minutes to inviting you to say a little bit about the work you're doing in
Yeah.
LA, for those who are in the Southern California area
Absolutely.
or passing through, just to know, or if you know friends or family who are in LA who might be interested, say a little bit about this half-day retreat that you're doing and what you're offering. And I just, by the way, is a co-sponsor of that half-day retreat on February 22nd.
Yeah. So I want to thank IJS for co-sponsoring that retreat. The retreat is a half day, really just an opportunity to dip a little more deeply into these practices that we engage in online. They'll be sitting. We'll actually do some chanting together, and that's a perfect example of something that is really difficult to do online in the way that we can do it in person when our voices resonate with one another. There's something about being with others in a contemplative modality in person that it's really just difficult for me to put into words. But the support
Mm-hmm.
that I feel by the physical presence of others when I enter contemplative space is truly tangible, really real. And so the invitation is just if you haven't experienced that, I hope that you have the chance, whether it's with me in Los Angeles or at any other program that IJS or any other wonderful organization offers. But and again, for me, it's this intentional community is so incredibly important right now. And it takes a lot to do something new and get out of ourselves. So I want to name that as well, that could be scary to enter into a space. But I hope you feel the gavura and the courage to do that, and to try something that's maybe new and different. Um, and in addition to the to the half day retreat, I also have a group that meets in a hybrid nature, partly in person and partly online on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock Pacific, but it overlaps with this. So if you need an in-person experience, come, and LA is available for you, downtown LA is available for you, please contact me about that. But if you're looking for online, please keep coming to this sit. So
Thanks, Kerith. Thank you so
yeah,
much for
yeah,
all you contribute to this community, and we are very, very delighted and hope that everybody here, as much as we love this virtual online community, there's no substitute, we know, for being in person. And we hope that to create many more opportunities for people to gather locally wherever you are, to find others who are interested in the practice together, to have that experience. So thanks for making that possible in Southern California. And thanks for leading us so regularly and beautifully here on the Daily Sit. Thanks to Rachel for holding our space faithfully and skillfully. Thanks to each of you for being here. I hope to see you tomorrow. We'll be led in practice tomorrow by Rabbi Daniel Raphael Silverstein, joining us from Israel. Applied your spirituality, always a pleasure, and you always get the bonus of a wrap with Rabbi Daniel. So something to look forward to as well tomorrow. So be safe and well, everyone. We hope to see you soon. Many blessings.
You know.